My name is Nadia Denton. I'm a film curator based in London. On behalf of CineDB Insights, I introduce this interview, which is part of the CineDB Africa Conversation Series, a collection of in-depth encounters with film professionals from across the African continent. CineDB Africa, supported by the Gotta Institute, now has a new home on the e-portal of the Durban Film Art Institute. Today, I am joined by Hajnal Molnar-Szskacs, Director of the Artist Accelerator at the Sundance Institute. Welcome, Hajnal.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you so much for having me.
So can you start off by just telling us some of the key ways that the Sundance Institute can support filmmakers? What tips would you give in terms of how they should engage?
You know, as you may know, Sundance is a nonprofit, and we provide creative and strategic support for artists working in film and episodic content. We work in fiction and in nonfiction, and we have a number of programs from our fiction program, our documentary film program, our feature film program, our documentary film program. We have an episodic program, we have producing, we have our Indigenous program, that we kind of all work together to support artists, both in the US and internationally, through our labs, our granting opportunities, and our intensives. And then, you know, I can go into the different kind of opportunities that we have, but the other kind of initiative that we launched during COVID is our collab. And I would highly encourage, you know, all filmmakers to really kind of look into collab and get engaged, because collab is our online community of filmmakers, and it's makers around the world. We offer really amazing learning opportunities and opportunities for engagement, not only with Sundance staff. So it's a way for you to kind of get your foot in the door, but also with other kind of really celebrated voices in film. So I think, you know, one of the key things is that, you know, just make sure usually the opportunity will specify if it's open to international applicants or if it's just US based. You know, for instance, our Sundance Documentary Fund, that is open international applications. And actually, over the last kind of 3-4 years, there's been a focus on artists from the African continent, as well as like Latin America and Asia. So we are actively looking for artists from the continent. So I would really kind of encourage applicants to apply, and it's okay to apply and then apply again. Don't be discouraged. You know, the applications come in from all around the world. They get thousands of applications a year, and only 40 can get support. So if your project changes or advances, apply again, because it's always worth just trying. And then also, I think it's really important to remember that on the other side of, you know, at the Institute, on the other side of these programs are real humans. So reach out, feel free to reach out. We often have emails that are about, like, if you have questions, if you have anything that doesn't make sense to you, like, just ask, because that's also what's going to allow you to kind of make your application the strongest that it can be. And I will say, you know, like, also our feature film program, the application for the development track is going to open in the spring, and I believe they always have 1 or 2 slots open for international applications. So don't be discouraged by the 4 slots that are available. Just try, because there's a real curiosity and there's a real interest in looking for stories that kind of spark cultural dialogue, that open up what we think about, and that also, you know, bring us to new worlds.
That's amazing. And I just wanted to pick up on that point that you made about filmmakers reaching out and getting in touch, because of course there's a fine line between, you know, over asking and perhaps, you know, getting support with the application versus just maybe getting clarification. So what do you think is reasonable in terms of the ask? And I presume that the Institute is like a lot of organizations where you probably have frequently asked questions, or you have certain prompts and things that might help people.
Yeah, so we do have, FAQs, frequently asked questions that people should read. Like read the website first, obviously. And if your question is not answered on the website, then that's when you reach out with something specific. I think, within the realm of nonfiction, over the last kind of 2 years, I was leading the kind of the charge on updating the nonfiction core application proposal checklist. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is a field-wide effort where we came together to standardize the questions that we ask for funding applications, for fiscal sponsorship applications, and for artist support applications.
Mhm.
So right now we have over 20 funders that are part of this initiative, which means that you as an artist, as a filmmaker, can kind of write your answers to these questions and then copy and paste them to 20 different funders, right? Which hopefully will cut down the time that you're spending on writing applications. But what I will say is there is a section in there that a lot of international applicants have questions about. And these are the questions around like community engagement, community care, safety, power positionality, and access and accountability. And, if you're unsure on how to answer these questions or how they relate to you and your project, that's when you reach out, right? Like that's a very specific question. We understand that it's right now the application may be a little bit more US centric or US focused. But we're here to help you, right? And we're here to kind of help you understand and interpret those questions for your specific situation.
Perfect. That's really helpful. And I'm sure quite encouraging to people who'll be watching this and hopeful about getting through. Are there any suggestions that you would give to filmmakers about how they can make their applications stand out or, even more competitive?
Yeah, so I think one thing is again the nonfiction core app, really familiarize yourself with the questions, feel really kind of solid in your answers to them. And once you write your application, have some peers, have some friends, have some colleagues read that application,
Mm,
right? Read your answers. And because usually the questions that they will be asking are the questions that the reviewers will also be asking.
mm,
So make sure that you're addressing all of those. Also, if we do have reviewers that come from all over the world, but we also have reviewers that are US based. So so they might not understand the cultural context that you're coming from. So make sure that you also, there's a question on topic summary. So make sure that in that question, you really solidly define and create an understanding of the world that your project lives in, and that you tell us about the context, the cultural context, the political context, the social context, why it's important, and how we can relate to that. I think is really important. I think also, be honest.
mm.
Don't like inflate your application to make it seem like you've done more than you have. I think what we're looking for is like a genuine curiosity to understand, like, and a desire to tell the story that you're telling from a genuine like place. Um, I think, and be really genuine and authentic to the story that you're telling.
Mm.
And, I recently at the Sundance Film Festival, we had a film called Milisutando that premiered, and it's from South Africa. It's one of my favorite films, I will say. And, it's a really artful and complex personal look at the experience of a millennial Black woman who only began grappling with apartheid as South Africa was coming out of it. And the Sundance Documentary Fund supported Millie a couple years ago, and the way we came to that support was, a friend of, or a colleague, a former colleague and a friend, met Millie at Durban,
Mm.
and he came back to the institute and in a meeting was like, I met this incredible filmmaker. She has so much curiosity, and she's telling the story that is really fresh, and it's new, and it's personal, and it's a way of looking at apartheid that we haven't seen before. And then I went to IDFA, I met Millie. We were supposed to have like a half an hour conversation, which turned into like 3 hours. And, then we talked about our application. And in that meeting, I realized like there was this like curiosity, that she had a vision, like really in your application, really clearly define what your vision is, but also be, humble enough to say, like, I don't know some of the things. And especially in nonfiction, you don't always know. Right. So just, I guess, like, and be open to like changes and shifts, and also clearly define like what are the questions that you're asking? What are you interrogating? What is the um what are the kind of the layers of the story that you're trying to get at? So I hope those are helpful in kind of what people should be thinking about when they're crafting an application to Sundance.
It really is. And on this topic of nonfiction stroke documentary, I wondered if you could share with us some new trends that you're seeing in terms of genres and forms, because at times people who maybe are outside of the nonfiction documentary world can think that they're monolithic, but there are some quite exciting and novel ways that creatives are merging different sort of media and different styles of storytelling. So it'd be great to hear from your perspective what you think are some of the new exciting forms that are emerging.
Sure. Well, I can say like, about a year and a half ago, I used to run the documentary fund, and about a year and a half ago, I transitioned and I created a new program called Artist Accelerator. And, one of the things I was really interested in when creating this program was kind of the intersectionality and the cross-pollination between fiction and nonfiction, because through my work at the Doc Fund, I was seeing a lot of artists who working in nonfiction who were really interested and were borrowing techniques or incorporating techniques from fiction, right? And there's this fluidity that's happening, I feel like, between the genres right now. That's really exciting. That's, I think, one of the things. I think in terms of like subject matter, I don't, Sundance is not a Netflix or an Amazon where we might have specific kind of we're interested in true crime or celebrity driven docs. I think what we're really interested in is that we're looking for original and complex storytelling. We're looking for stories that are multi-layered. We're looking stories that we've not seen before. We're looking for the stories that are going to kind of open cultural dialogue, and our understanding of each other, not necessarily the next true crime project, right? So I would encourage you to not create a film because it fits somebody's box of what they're trying to film, their checklist, but rather create something that's genuine to you and your positionality in the world.
Yeah. No, I find that so encouraging. I think particularly having had a number of conversations with some of the more commercial outfits, and at times, feeling like the conversation or discourse is very much about fitting into a particular type of box. So I just wanted to sort of go off piece slightly and just reflect on, you mentioned that you've been in your new role in terms of the Artist Accelerator. And, just off the top of your head, I mean, what are some of the things that you've observed or reflected can really help an artist or a creative to accelerate their careers, and they might be maybe emerging, they might be at a particular point in their career. Any kind of suggestions about things that can help just take them to that next level or to make a certain type of transition that otherwise would be quite difficult?
I think one of the most important things that I've noted is community, and bringing a community of creatives, like-minded creatives around you who can support your dream and your vision, and then not being afraid to ask for help. Because also the goal of this Artist Accelerator program is that we bring artists together in small cohorts, and we have regular meetings, and and there's like a work share opportunities where we're all feeding, and we come together from different genres. We have TV writers, we have fiction, we have nonfiction, all in one cohort. So it's like bringing together those different ways of working and those different ways of thinking, and those different expertise into one. And in your own creative practice, I think as much as you can, bring together a community around you who can support you and your vision, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. And I think something that we can often forget about in the race to get projects finished and, to try to be more competitive and, to get to the top. Yeah, remembering that we're part of that wider community. So you mentioned earlier in the conversation, the dynamic conversation that you had with Millie, that you were meant to just have this brief chat and it ended up being, a 3-hour conversation. And that's really the magic, when you go to a festival or a market and you have what is meant to have been more of a sort of business type meeting, and then you just connect as humans, and you're just able to talk and it flows and you forget about job titles and the fact that, this person's from this institution, that person's a filmmaker, however the dynamic is. What tips would you give about making special connections at festivals and markets, particularly for filmmakers who do want to advance their careers and sort of be smart in their networking?
Sure. I think I always, I encourage filmmakers to reach out and but I'll also have like a specific ask almost, right? So it's not just I often feel uncomfortable in just general meetings
Mm.
because I don't know what the where it's going to go or what the goal is. If you want to talk about your project, like share something about your project in advance so I can look at it, but also have kind of set expectations around my time, honestly. And often at markets I'm like running around.
Mm-hmm.
So just the clarity in the meeting, I think, is really important. And then I think the other thing is to like, I often tell filmmakers like follow up multiple times because my inbox is like a black hole. And if I miss your first email, I'm so sorry. I will, like I've gone back and sent people emails 6 months later because I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what happened to this. But just don't be afraid to kind of follow up in a gentle way.
Mm.
And also have a clear ask and have a clear goal, right? Like, hey, I'm meeting with you because I'm really interested in applying for XYZ, or I'm meeting with you because I'd love your feedback on, I've applied to the fund or I've applied to XYZ. I didn't get it, but I'd love kind of some insight or some feedback or like, how did you understand my project, right? So, and be open and ready for that conversation, right? Don't set a meeting, no, like not being willing to kind of hear that kind of feedback either.
Are there any suggestions you would give for filmmakers watching this who perhaps would have applied to the Sundance Institute or various other ones and maybe haven't been successful or feel like it might not be the right way for them? Any other reflections that you may have about, thinking about finance or, seeing how, one can bring the necessary funds to a project?
Yeah, I think I will be totally honest, like my knowledge is much better in the US. So this might be more relevant for US based filmmakers, but I think it feels like there's more, so films are getting more expensive to make, right? Funding from like larger organizations like Sundance hasn't necessarily kind of grown to keep up with the cost of how much it costs to make a film. But it does feel like there's new individuals and family foundations that are getting into the funding space that I would encourage people to seek out. The IDA, I believe, has a really great grants database that kind of lists all the funding opportunities. I think also in the funding space, the kind of the other exciting kind of move is that development funders like Catapult and like Sundance, they've made their grants a little bit bigger. So they're at $25,000 now for development grants, which is a great move, I think, because of, things keep going up in price. Um, and then I think, there's look at smaller local funding organizations where you're based, right? Like, um, because especially if you're making a local story, they might actually see an excitement in having a story told about that community. Or if you're making an issue based film, look at issue-based funders, right? Or look at people that are funding that issue. Maybe they don't have experience funding media yet, but I think it's always worthwhile to try to have that conversation and see if they would be interested, right? One of the things I'm working on right now is actually an impact core application, which is for impact funding, to looking at standardizing the applications across impact funding. And I think that's another kind of area that that filmmakers can look at to help fill their budgets.
Brilliant. And then just very lastly, any quick industry predictions or trends that you've observed that you think are going to be dominant over the forthcoming period?
This is a hard one for me. I feel like our when I work with my filmmakers, they're always like, one week they're elated, the next week they're totally depressed. And the only thing I've really realized is that it really is cyclical. What goes up will come down, what goes down will come up. And so be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself. And, I do think people will go back to theaters. I think that's really exciting. It was just so nice to be in a theater at Sundance. And I think make your projects and just think about the specific audience that you're making it for. And you will find success, but define success for yourself, right? And be genuine to what you want in that way.
Super. So that's a really delightful note to end the conversation on. Very grateful for your time, Hajnal, and very much hoping that as a result of this, we get a bit more of a flurry of applications from Africa-based filmmakers. But yeah, certainly wishing you and all of those that you support all the very best.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And of course, please feel free, if you're listening to this, feel free to reach out. We're here to help and support as much as we can. Thank you.